Hare Krishna, everyone. So let us start. So we are in chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga. Okay, so we are coming to end of one section of Bhagavad Gita, Karma Yoga section. Okay, so what is this? Let us begin our obeisance. Pay obeisance to Sri Radha Govinda. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Nananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavscha Shri Rupam Sagarajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Tanvittam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakana Vittamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dino Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Ramostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitam Nam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasha Desha Tarini Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So let us begin. So we were in last two classes, we were discussing chapter 5. It was all about when Arjuna started asking Krishna, whether to take up sannyas or karma yoga, because he was thinking they are two different. Then the Lord said, for you, Arjuna, karma yoga is easier. That is, Nishkama Karma Yoga is easier than renouncing work. And it is as good as sannyasa because the goals are same. But Karma Yoga is better for you, Arjuna. That's what the Lord says. And then he continues to explain how Nishkama Karma Yoga can be done, has to be done. And then we came to that, knowing the three doers. It tells a very interesting thing, which of course many of us did not know, that whenever any action is done, there are three doers involved. That is, knowledge of three doers will help us to become a little detached from this mentality. What is the mentality we'll have? That I did it. I was the one who was it. So this mentality, in fact, it limits us, makes us more thinking, and we become narrow-minded. Then he talked about how to get liberation through meditating on the super soul. We get supreme bliss and also inner bliss. Then liberation by Ashtanga Yoga, which we'll do it now in this chapter in more detail. Then he gave us the peace formula. Actually, throughout our life, we never focus on this peace. That's what Prabhupada says. He says we keep running. As a child, we want to run after the toys. And as a friend, and then when we grow and go to the school, we are always running behind our friends and that. Then teenager, or when you come to that, it will be boys and girls. And later you'll be trying to run behind money too, because you want to have a family and you want to get settled. So then it is more of security. You want a house for your children, for your thing. Then by the time you will come to the almost 60, 70, where this is a setup, and you will be running behind hospitals and medical stores. So actually, when somebody passes, what the people say, they say, may the souls rest in peace. But what does Krishna say here? He says, Bhagavad Gita, when we are alive, we do not focus on that, right? But Bhagavad Gita is teaching us how to get that peace while we are living, not after we are dead. So he's giving us steps leading to a life of liberation, freedom, and tranquility. So this is what living in this world, how one can do his duty unattached, knowledge of three doers, can see with equal vision to all that is different types of, and how what is the thing which is obstacles in our path, essential price, that thing, and what is pain, right? So what does he think? He gives the peace formula, supreme enjoyer, control. That is, if we know that everything belongs to God, and also if we know that God is the one who controls everything, he's the Maheshwara, controller. And he's also a well-wisher, because he's our best friend. So when we know these things, then we'll be in peace, because only when we are in peace, we can do meditation. So that is what we are going to look at in this chapter. After you're getting a peaceful mind, what one should do? Then you have to go deeper. So this is what. So I'm just bringing this back because this is what our process is, the thinking process. No, once we keep thinking we like it or not like it, then we take action about it. And slowly, that when you're repeatedly doing the action, we become a habit. And that forms our character. And then it is a destiny. So if you want to change our destiny, it is still in our hands, because it is there. If you think your thoughts are changed, if you have a consciousness, there's a shift, then slowly you can change your habits and your thing, and ultimately your destiny. So this is what it's all about. It's possible to change our destiny. How? By shifting our consciousness to Krishna. Gradually your detachment from material world occurs. So if you keep this in your mind, then you can think that, can I come into this? Is there any remedy for me at this stage? It might be, because you might have done many, we'll be in many sinful reactions would be there. Doesn't matter. At any time in our life, we can take to this. So this is what it's about. All we need to change the thinking process, and that we need to have knowledge. And that's what we are learning in Bhagavad Gita. So this chapter is mainly on culmination. This is Dhyana Yoga. Dhyana Yoga means meditation. Okay. How do you advance in yoga? Through detached. That's what we're going to see. Then Yoga Rudha stage, giving up work. Then further stages in the practice of yoga. And then comes to necessity of controlling the turbulent mind, destination of the unsuccessful yogi talks. So this is how the sections are. And this chapter is mostly on mind, on your mind. Okay. This is what. See how in the beginning, the chapter 1 was all about lamentation. Like, we do come into a situation, we keep lamenting on our misfortunes or whatever it is, we have got into troubles. And so that is what Arjuna went through, lamentation. And then in chapter 2, the Lord gave us about the identity. He says, you are part and parcel of me, you're the soul and not the body. And you have come into this material world because you desired. Then he told in chapter 3 about our duty, because it was our duty is to fulfill our desires in a regulated manner and to work and to, as per the Vedic scriptures, and to go back to his abode. Okay. And chapter 4 was he gave more knowledge about the Lord, because that knowledge, with that knowledge, if you do your duty, that's what it's all about in chapter 5. And what do you do after that? After that is this, you advance to go back, meditation. So advancing in yoga through detached work. Ashtanga yogis like Nishkama Karma yogis engage in detached work to advance. So this is all it's all about in this verses 6. So detachment comes to one who realizes that he is not autonomous in his action. That means he is not the complete, he is the one who's controlling his action. No. With just what we came to know. He understands that without Lord's sanction, he cannot do anything. So sanction, that's what we concluded last chapter, isn't it? That God's sanction is the immediate cause for the happenings in our life, good or bad. So first the Jiva desires, then Super Soul verifies and sanctions based on does this Jiva deserve to get this desire fulfilled. And to that extent, he will get the sanction. And then after receiving the Super Soul's order, the material nature through the means will fulfill the Jiva's desires. Okay, this is how it happens. So without the sanction, we cannot do anything. If we understand that, then you go a long way. So if you so desire Krishna, that's the question. So one who purifies his vision and activity by Nishkama Karma Yoga, then he can make further advancement by practice of meditation on Super Soul by Ashtanga Yoga method. So for Ashtanga Yoga, that is the yoga which everybody talks about today, it's not that. We have to have, this is a preliminary thing. You have to purify vision by Nishkama Karma Yoga. Okay. Then you can practice. So then what happens? By meditating on the Super Soul, one can develop devotion to him in Bhakti Yoga. Understanding that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, ultimate controller, and best friend. So prelude for Ashtanga Yoga is Nishkama Karma Yoga. Okay. Before practicing advanced stages of Ashtanga Yoga, one must be purified by the practice of Nishkama. Therefore, Lord Krishna glorifies Nishkama Karma Yoga in the first two verses. So in the beginning of the chapter, he starts off with saying, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Anashrita Karma Palam Karyam Karma Karotiya Sa Sanyasi Cha Yogi Cha Na Niragnir Na Chakriya. What does it mean? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated. Karyam karma karoti. That means it is his duty, so he does it. Just, he's not bothered about, he's not attached to the fruits of his work. He just works as is obligated. That means then he is in the renounced order of life and he is the true mystic, not the one who lights no fire and performs no duty. So a mystic yogi, he goes into meditation because he wants some mystic powers. Then he will not do any material duty, right? So Supreme Lord, now he explains how one who is unattached and who works as obligated is in the renounced order of life. Okay, so let us see the. In this chapter, the Lord explains that the process of eightfold yoga system is a means to control the mind and the senses. See, throughout the thing, now we learn that we have to regulate our senses. We have to tolerate our urges and all that, right? However, this is very difficult for people in general to perform, especially in the age of Kali. Although the eightfold yoga system is recommended in this chapter, the Lord emphasized that the process of karma yoga or acting in Krishna consciousness is better. But why does he talk about it? Then thing is, he has to tell everything, all 360. He must give you all the dimensions, and then he will tell which is better and which is not better, and for what purpose and why. So he explains this, and that's why he spends so many verses just on focusing on this Ashtanga Yoga. And everyone acts in this world to maintain his family and their periphery, but no one is working without some self-interest and some personal gratitude, be it concentrated or extended. Extended means like, doing social work and all that, doing for the country and things like that. The criteria of perfection is to act in Krishna consciousness, not with a view to enjoying the fruits of work. To act in Krishna consciousness is the duty of every living entity because all are constituent parts and parcel of the Supreme. The parts of the body work for the satisfaction of the whole body. The limbs of the body do not act for self-satisfaction, but for the satisfaction of the complete whole. So similarly, living entity who acts for satisfaction of supreme whole and not for personal satisfaction is the perfect sannyasi, the perfect yogi. So this is how Prabhupada Rai explains that. So sannyasis sometimes artificially think that they have become liberated from all material duties and therefore they cease to perform Agnihotra Yagnas. So sometimes people think they have become very advanced and they don't have any material duty to perform, and even the sacrifices they won't do because they are actually self-interested. Their goal is to become one with the impersonal Brahman. Such a desire is greater than any material desire, but is not without self-interest. And then Prabhupada again talks about mystic yogi who practices yoga system with half open eyes, ceasing all material activities because what does he want? He wants satisfaction for personal self. But a person acting in Krishna consciousness works for satisfaction of the whole. That means he's without self-interest. A Krishna conscious person has no desire for self-satisfaction. His criteria of success is the satisfaction of Krishna. That's why he's a perfect sannyasi or perfect yogi. So this is how the Prabhupada writes in his purport, who is the perfect yogi. Okay? Who works because it's his duty and he is not attached to the fruits of his work. So same thing here. And in this Ashtanga Yoga system, it's not for this Kali Yuga. And for Kali Yuga, we have this Sankirtana Yajna, that is Mahamantra, chanting of Mahamantra. Then emphasis on Karma Yoga, because we are part and parcel and we should work with the Lord always in mind in absolute surrender. Must work in Krishna consciousness as though we are obligated to him. The parts of the body work for the satisfaction. So this is what the whole essence there. And then he compared, say, sannyasi and mystic yoga, which we looked at the purport. And whereas Krishna conscious person, he works for satisfaction of the whole without self-interest. So he's a true sannyasi. So here Krishna is explaining who is a true sannyasi. It's a perfect yogi. Okay. And then he continues to say, what is called renunciation, you should know to be same as yoga or linking oneself with the Supreme. O son of Pandu, for one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. So, how do you become a mystic yogi? So, the first thing is we have to renounce this desire for sense gratification. Otherwise, you cannot become a yogi. And now, what happens? So next, now he's giving us the steps, how one is programmed. See, because he talked about Nishkama Karma Yoga, and now he's talking about Ashtanga. So how is he linking the two? So here he talks about the two stages. Arukshar Mune Yogam Karma Karanam Uchyate Yoga Rudasya Tasaiva Sama Karanam Uchyate. For one who is a neophyte in the Eightfold Yoga system, work is said to be the means. Karma Karanam Uchyate. That means it's like a ladder, you are progressing in a spiritual path, right? Now as a nascent, you are in this level, Yoga Ruksha, where for us, because we are still in the beginning stage, it's a neophyte, then work is required. Here Krishna says you have to work because that is means for purification is required. But once was already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activity. Once you've reached the highest stage of perfection, then there's no need for material activities because you're already reached in the samadhi and you are samakaranam uchyati. So that's why there are two stages. This is the beginning stage and this is the highest perfection. So the process of linking oneself with Supreme is called yoga, which may be compared to a ladder for attaining the topmost spiritual realization. So this ladder begins from the lowest material condition of the living entity and rises up to the perfect realization in pure spiritual life. So understand? So this is where we need to understand about it. When you look at the Ashtanga, means there are 8 limbs for that yoga system. Okay. And we are in the first step. So we are in the Yoga Raksha. And only when they reach the Samadhi, the topmost, that's where you are known as Yoga Rudra. There you are linking yourself with the Supreme. So you are almost in the perfect realization in the pure spiritual life. Okay. So the process of linking a living entity may be compared to ladder. The ladder takes one to the topmost spiritual realization, begins from the lowest material condition, the state of. So it can be divided into three parts: Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Okay, we are in the karma, that lowest part. Then we get some knowledge. Then we get with this Jnana Yoga, and slowly you go into meditation, Dhyana Yoga, and finally you link yourself with the Lord. That's where you end up with Bhakti Yoga. So beginning of the ladder is Yoga Raksha, and the highest rung is the Yoga Rudra. So following Ashtanga Yoga, situation, oneself meditation, perfect mental equilibrium to control the senses is achieved. All disturbable mental activity cease. But in Krishna consciousness, one is always meditating on Krishna, constantly engaged in the service of Krishna, when all material activities are constantly ceased. So here, this is what, when you are in Krishna consciousness, what you are doing is, you are always working with Krishna in your mind, remembering him. So that consciousness, that means you are already linking yourself with the Lord. So you don't have to go through all those steps of meditative things. That's what it means here. Is always meditating on Krishna, constantly engaged in service of Krishna, then all material activities are considered to have ceased, because he's doing it for the Lord and he's not attached to the fruits of the labor, and he's always thinking of the Lord. So he's always meditating. So that other type of endeavor is not required. But anyway, he explains that also. So how is our ladder of spiritual development has been explained. We are in the first step. That is, step 0 is we are a fruitive worker performing rituals for elevation to heavenly planets, regulated sense gratification in accordance with scriptures. That is a karma kanda state, where from animal stage you start looking into the Vedic scriptures and you are regulating your sense gratification by performing a lot of rituals and praying to the demigods and all that, so that you can purify yourself and elevate to the heavenly plan. That would be your purpose. But slowly, when you start thinking more and advancing in spiritual life, then you start renouncing the fruits of one's labor. That's when it turns from karma kanda to karma yoga. Then when you are completely renouncing, then you are in the nishkama karma yoga. That's the other level. Then once you start, you are in that renouncing fruits, and you also knowledge you get about the Brahman, and you follow certain austerity procedures, things, then you slowly get more and more about the Lord. Then you are in the stage of Jnana. Then you have renounced the fruits, then you have got some knowledge. Then once you start controlling your mind and senses by the Eightfold Path and meditation on Paramatma, Superstore, that is the Ashtanga Yoga. And then you finally come to the stage of loving devotional service to Supreme Lord. So this is how there's a ladder goes. But it doesn't mean that you have to follow like this. Krishna consciousness, you are straight away on doing that in going towards the Bhakti Yoga. Okay. So a person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitful activities. So Krishna is explaining that state. Okay. So we see, how do we understand that we have reached the topmost? So that top terms, we should know the symptoms, right? So the Lord is explaining in this verse. Okay. Now, yogi may even give up Nishkama Karma Yoga when his mental control reaches a stage of regarding well-wishers, the envious, the pious, and sinners. So, when can he give up his work? So, that is the Yoga Rudra stage. So, Yoga Rudra stage is not that you work on your mind and not on the body. So, you are already reached, your mind is under control, all your senses are controlled, and you regard everyone as the well-wisher, pious, sinners equally. So Yoga Riksha is a neophyte. He must work because he is not yet detached, he is not yet pure or advanced, right? He is cultivating detachment from fruits. So he practices part-time asana and perhaps pranayama while engaging in Karma Yoga, right? Whereas advanced stage, he does not act for sense gratification, is completely in control, engage in fruitive activities, renounced all material desires, is permitted to quit prescribed duties. Nishkama Karma Yoga can be given up. Practices yoga full time as full knowledge. So these are the two different stages. You are in the beginning stage, and this is the highest perfect advanced stage. So now Krishna is more going to explain. I hope you have understood. Is there any doubts so far? Hare Krishna. So one must see in all that he says mind control, right? One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditional soul and his enemy as well. So how do we understand? See, first he told us we are the soul and not the body. Then he's telling about the mind. So that means if the soul is controlling the mind, then the mind is your friend. Or if mind is controlling you, the soul, that means mind is your enemy. That's what it means here. That means if you can't control your mind. Atmanatna, not my. So let us see what Prabhupada writes. Hare Krishna, anyone can volunteer to read this puppet? Hare Krishna. Mohan Prabhuji.
Yes,
Hare
Mataji,
Krishna.
I'll read.
Okay, Mataji. Rajpriya Singh. Okay.
Ma'am, Mataji, only purport or from translation?
Purport, Mataji.
Okay. Purport. The word Atma denotes body, mind, and soul depending upon different circumstances. In the yoga system, the mind and the conditioned soul are specially important. Since the mind is the central part of yoga practice, Atma refers here to the mind. The purpose of the yoga system is to control the mind and to draw it away from the attachment to the sense objects. It is stressed herein that the mind must be so trained that it can deliver the conditioned soul from the mire of the nescience. The material existence, one is in the material existence, one is subjected to the influence of the mind and the senses. In fact, the pure soul is entangled in the material world because the mind is involved with the false ego, which desires to lord it over the material nature. Therefore, the mind should be trained so that it will not be attracted by the glitter of material nature, and in the way the conditioned soul may be saved. One should not degrade oneself by attraction to sense objects. The more one is attracted by sense objects, the more one becomes entangled in material existence. The best way to disentangle oneself is to always engage the mind in Krishna consciousness. The word he is used for emphasizing the point, that is, that one must do this. It is also said, Mana eva manusyam karanam bandha mokshaya bandhaya vish, vishyan go
Vishaya Shango.
Vishyan Shango Muktaya Nirvishayan Manaha. For man, mind is the cause of bondage and mind is the cause of liberation. Mind is absorbed in sense objects in the cause of bondage, and mind detached from the sense object is the cause of liberation. Amrita Bindu Upanishad 2. Therefore, the mind which is always engaged in Krishna consciousness is the cause of supreme liberation. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So what are the major obstacles we have? It's our habits itself, isn't it? See, you can see we are so addicted to our mobile. There are people who are addicted to drugs or to crime, or they're always stressed about, or the thing, there's so many problems in life because we are not keeping our mind in control. So that's what here carefully the purpose of the yoga system is clearly said, that is to control the mind and to draw it away from attachment to sense objects, right? So that means we have to control that. So that is what here Krishna is telling us. We must, with the help of the mind, we can deliver ourselves, because mind can cause bondage, because if you attach to the sense objects, or it can help you out as a friend by when you attach yourself to the Lord. So that's what here finally says. In this Upanishad also, the mind is a cause of bondage because we get attached to the sense objects. And if you don't control the mind. But if you have a control on the mind, then you have a control on the senses. Then what happens? Then the mind will help you to get liberation because you're focusing on, you're engaging your mind in Krishna consciousness. So this is what it clearly says in this, that how the mind can be your enemy or it could be your friend. Okay. So one must deliver himself with the help of the mind and not degrade himself. So is mind your friend or an enemy? That's the thing we need. So one who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, the mind will remain the greatest enemy. So it's a Shatruvat. So you have to be very clear how we have to think. So there are 6 enemies of the mind. One is your lust, the karma, desire. No, you have intense desire for certain things. It could be intense desire for your sense. And then if you are not able to get it, if senses are not, if your desires are not filled, you get into anger. Or if your desires are filled, you get more and more desires. You become more and more greedy. So krodha, lobha. And also you have kind of intoxication. Like, you have done, you think you have done the best and your ego blows up like anything. On the that kind of madness, mada. Then moha, illusion. That is your other thing. Matsarya, you envy others. So these are the things which are enemies for the mind. Okay. And it is self-explanatory. I don't have to go in detail, but these are the 6 enemies. So now after explaining that, how mind you have to control and why we have to control, because that will be, otherwise it will start controlling you. Now Krishna is going to tell us about the symptoms of Yoga Ruda. So in the advanced stage, what are the symptoms? So these are the qualities they have. What are the qualities? For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. So this is the advanced stage of the Yoga Ruda. Okay, who has realized. He sees Paramatma in his heart, he has inner peace, and is neutral to the heat, cold, or whatever is happening, sukha, dukkha, happiness, distress, and he doesn't look for anybody to honor him, or if somebody insults him, for him everything is same. Equal vision. He sees pebbles, stones, gold as a matter, and living entities, people, friends, enemies, are spirit souls. Okay. So a person is called a yogi when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendences and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it is pebbles, stone, or gold, as the same for him, everything. So this is the stage of the thing. So one establishes self-realization by virtue of knowledge and certainty. So this is what thing. And person is considered still further advanced when he regards honor, well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral mediators, envious friends, enemies, pious and sinners, all with an equal. That he has a samadarshan. He sees everything as the spirit soul. So that was the highest stage. Okay. Now Arjuna will ask, how do I go there? So this is the question. So you have told, he explained everything. What is the stage you have to reach? Now he's going to give us the practice of thing, how to reach that stage. That is where he explains the Ashtanga Yoga. Okay. Krishna describes the practices of Ashtanga Yoga. Results are Yoga Rudha, the perfectional stage, ultimate vision. So there are 8 yangas. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. Actually, we are in the beginning stage here. There are do's and don'ts. And what is the thing? And then what are the, and how do you meditate and things? So here the first 4 steps is you can say as a sadhana bhakti. This is our practices. Once you start practicing these do's and don'ts and regulations, and then slowly you regulate your life, and then you come to pratyara, dharana, then dhyana and station. So this is what starts with all concentrating. But this is not the yoga practice. This is what today it has become a business, and there's chair yoga, kitchen for things, and so many things. And they only look at the health, but it is something much more. Okay. So, as I said, yamas, external disciplines, niyama, internal disciplines, asana, what is the posture you have to keep, pranayama, how do you breathing control. Then slowly you withdraw your senses and you focus on inside, concentrate inside, dharana. Then you fully get meditatively absorbed. Then slowly you reach the samadhi state. So these all comes only after this. So what are these do's and don'ts? First is you should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. Okay, that is the yama. And he should be temperate in his habits of eating, sleeping, working, recreation. So you see how to meditate. So he gives us a lot of guidelines. You have to be in a asana. Then it should be a proper place. It should be clean, pure, secluded. And how to meditate. To control your mind, you have to be fearless, celibacy, right? And then also gives very important to change your lifestyle. You should have a regulated eating, sleeping, working, recreation. Yeah, Prabhupada says, if you sleep too much, you become very lazy. Or if you sleep too less, then you become crazy. So you have to be temperate in that, in the habits of eating, what to eat, when do you eat, how much, and how do you, the habit of eating, no, the prescribed timings and all that, and how much you sleep, when do you sleep, how much you work, even working, and are you workaholic, and then recreation, because that is required for your mind to be some relax and all that. Even that has to be regulated. It's not that you do it endlessly, just sit in front of TV for a long time and all that. So recreation. So everything should be temperate. Okay. Actually, even if you don't follow Krishna consciousness, but you can see these things really apply to your lifestyle. If you apply it, it helps you much more. And then you lay the kusha grass on the ground and cover it with a deer skin. That is all when you live in the forest. The seed should neither be too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. One should hold one's body, neck, and head erect in a straight line and stay steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me. So this is what Krishna says. You have to meditate upon me. That is what, because you want to link with the Lord Yoga. Then practice stopping the movement of the outgoing breath into incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remain in trance. So you have given us the do's, the don'ts, and then how to be think, and how you have to subdued mind, devoid of fear, free from celibacy, you have to practice, and you should meditate upon me. And then slowly, as you practice this, then your sensation of material existence starts taking place, and your mental activities and become situated in trance, devoid of all material desires. That stage when you reach, it's known as dharana. That is, you have attained yoga. And dhyana is like, once you're in that stage and you continue to be in that stage without any disturbance, as a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so whose mind is controlled, always steady in meditation. That is the stage you have reached, the dhyana stage. And then one is never shaken even midst of greatest difficulty. Is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material cause. That is the stage when you reach samadhi, you are linking. So these are the basic practices in Ashtanga Yoga. And here in these verses up till 23, Krishna is explaining the entire guidelines he's giving you. Okay, it's not what is being today the practices. So there is no possibility of one becoming a yogi, oh Archana, if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough. So this is what Krishna is very clear when he's explaining everything. He explains us all the do's, don'ts, and how the repercussions and everything. Okay. So once they've reached the samadhi stage and they are in that topmost thing, what happens? He should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith and not be deviated from the path. So what happens? He should be determined. He should not come out of that. So only then they can succeed in this yogic practice. Okay. So that is what's required. There have to be determination and faith is required. And then what happens? Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence, sustained by full conviction. That means this practice will work for me. You should be in that. And thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. Okay? Only with faith and determination, then they can reach. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must continually withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. So the mind will wander because it's a flickering thing. But you should keep on bringing it back, and slowly by practice, you will reach the stage. So yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the mode of passion. He realizes qualitative identity with the Supreme. And thus he is freed from all reactions to past days because he is all the time fixed on me. Thus the self-control yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contaminations and achieves the highest stage of happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord. So Krishna explains clearly the stage. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, every day, everywhere. So this is what a perfect yogi is. Okay. And for one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost. Such a yogi, you engage in the worship of service of the super soul, knowing that I and the super soul are one, remain always in me in all circumstances. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and distress. Oh, Archana. So, this is what the yoga ladder, high rank. All other yogas are progression towards the destination. So, this what happens? We started from Karma Yoga when we said about the Nishkama. You do your work, okay, but you do it for me. He says, no, you do it with the Yogeshwar. Nishkama Karma. Get detached from the fruits of actions. That is perfect. Then once you start practicing that, then he gives us the knowledge. What is the knowledge? He is the transcendental and everything. He is the enjoyer, he is the controller, and he is the well-wisher. So we got all the knowledge about the transcendental knowledge and also the peace formula. Once you are in that Ishkama Karma and with this knowledge, then you start practicing your sadhana bhakti. That's what all that yama, niyama, and all that pranayama. Then slowly austerities you perform. Then slowly you reach the samadhi state where you start meditating on the Lord, on the super soul, and then do the devotional service to the Lord. That is the bhakti yoga. So this is, I mean, you need not go in. You can. Krishna consciousness, what Prabhupada has given us. From here itself, you start meditating on the Lord because you're doing all service for the Lord, for the Krishna consciousness. Once you're in Krishna consciousness, then Slowly you will be rising through this and you will be in the directly in the bhakti. Okay, you don't have to go step by step, you can do it. So now you know how difficult this Ashtanga yoga practices is and how Sankirtana Yagna, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us, that is the sublime. It's very easy to do that. Okay. So this controlling the mind, we'll do it tomorrow because that takes what Arjuna is asking questions. It comes if it's very difficult, but we'll do it the next